Looks good.
And you might be on mute. Jamie?
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3, coming through loud
Well,
and clear.
now we got you, and we see you, and we hear you.
You know, it always helps if you unmute yourself before you begin speaking. I've
Hmm.
discovered that recently.
Yeah, having more than one mute button, having a soft mute on GoToMeeting and then a hard mute on your headphones, it can get confusing.
It is, but we've risen above. So I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy day to come attend. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a nice, relaxing weekend. Time to recharge and get ready for the new week. Before we get rolling, just need to take care of the lawyer speak. Just want to make sure that everybody is aware that we're publishers of information. We don't recommend anything or solicit anything for purchase or sale. Everything we share with you is strictly for educational purposes. So if you do need the expertise from a registered broker or advisor, please seek those people out. There's plenty of them out there. But as far as we're concerned, strictly educational for what we publish and show you here today. All right, so we're going to let Steve take us off here, start us off with the market recap. Steve, would you like me to pass that over to you, or would you like to see my screen?
No, I can pass it over to me. I'll take it. Give me that
All
ball.
right. 1 second here.
Give me the rock.
Let's see.
I can probably figure it out.
There we go. I think I got you. Here we go. Passing to you now.
All right.
When in all actuality, you were starting, not me. I misspoke earlier.
Is that right? All right.
Ain't
So
on
you
me.
guys, all right, so my screen is being shown correct. Great. So here is the spider chart, SPY, that we've been talking a lot about with these orange lines lately. But I'll tell you, it is really interesting. I fully expected, and I mentioned this to Jamie earlier today, when we shot above this orange line today with a full green candle, I really thought that was going to be it. Kind of surprised to see that it was yanked back and jerked back by the rains yet once again. So, you know, this is a really confounding type of wedge or a trading range, whatever you want to call it, kind of a contorted flag, but doesn't really seem to want to sell off and doesn't really seem to want to break out. I mean, we've been dealing with this range here for about 12 days now, I believe, and I've highlighted many times these downside wicks as we come to the closing time of the day. Same with today, a nice close. In other words, we're never really closing on lows. We always seem to be finding that magic last hour lift back into the range. But again, some of the luster off my bias of this market breaking out was kind of taken back today. I'm a bit more neutral now. I really fully expected today's breakout that we had early in the morning to find legs and continue and move through and move higher, because everything was lining up for just such an event, but we did not get it. So I'm kind of throwing up a first strike red flag here. What's going on? Kind of unusual that we're sucked back right down into this range again after a really decent attempt to break out through it today. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, this orange line, this current orange line was the high of the wicks going back to last week. I haven't really adjusted them. I suppose I could adjust them up as being our new high level. But down here was the ranges that we had broken out from. Again, the good news is we continue to trade above and don't get anywhere near pulling back to these levels. But at the same time, we're being held in check by some mysterious glass ceiling here that doesn't want to work itself out. So I don't know if it's going to take some sort of a catalyst, maybe employment numbers or something. One can only guess what it's going to take to maybe actually get this price action to move through this trading range and follow through and close above. But again, kind of strike one against the market here on the bulls today, the way we did not follow through. I fully anticipated that we were going to do that, and that kind of threw me for a loop. So not much else really to talk about. It's the same old story. We've been bouncing off of the Brexit fake out, letting a beach ball under 8 feet of water go, and it pops right back to the surface. But here we are just kind of bobbing on the surface with no follow through and no pullback. Market is still innocent until proven guilty, innocent for the bulls until proven guilty otherwise. These are supposed to be continuation type patterns that we've moved up into on this sideways action. But, again, a little bit of a blemish today because we did not follow through and we had every opportunity to do so. So that's what I noticed today. Kind of caught me off guard, but nonetheless, we dropped back into our price trading range, and it looks like we're going to continue to probably open up in that range again tomorrow. So that's all I really have on the spiders. It's kind of self-explanatory. We just got to break out of this range. I mean, if anything, we probably could. Maybe I'll do that right now. Let's grab a new line, and let's see. I'm looking at kind of the conglomerate, the congested area. Probably right about here is where I'm going to keep an eye on for the other horizontal line. This seems to be our trading range that we have identified right here. So roughly 215.50 up to 217.50. 2-point trading range in the SPY. So that's what I got. I'll give you the ball back, Mr. Jamie. There you go.
Well, thank you kindly, Steve.
Yep, you got it.
And, as far as what you were just speaking about, I mean, when this does happen, I mean, obviously it's going to be the mother of all breakouts. And, of course, I'm sure we have to have a little bit of volume behind that move. It's not like it's going to be done on strictly a technical breakout just because it's there. But probably at some point in time, we will see that volume come in, and then it's off to the races. Okay, so moving right along here, we're going to go ahead and talk about Holly's activity today. The interesting thing to point out before we move on into the actual trading is that, you just never can tell if Holly's going to be real quiet on these little not quite inside days. I mean, we weren't quite inside today, almost. But sometimes big things come in small packages, right? Mm-hmm. So interestingly enough, Holly kicked out, I believe it was right at 18 trades today. And there's a very interestingly enough, the strategy that kicked out most of those trades was Alpha Predator. Now, there's a little bit of history to this strategy. For those of you who attend regularly, you might already be up to speed on it just from your observations. There are probably a good handful of people in here that have never seen Holly before. So just to kind of update everybody on the Alpha Predator strategy before we get into the actual trades. Alpha Predator first made the trade ideas seen as a top list, which is what you're seeing right here. And it was created by our CEO, Dan Merkin, and it quickly became one of the most popular windows in the whole suite of software that we have, for obvious reasons. What we've noticed from this window over time is that it spits out some pretty interesting plays right on the open, and a lot of the times they just continue. Of course, that's all going to be dependent somewhat upon market conditions. So interestingly enough, looking at the Holly strategy panel today, right here, these were all the strategies that made the cut after the analysis that went on Friday and the folding in of Friday's tick data to our database. So we can see here, Alpha Predator kicked out 8 of the trades out of the 18 trades today, so responsible for the lion's share. Now, 8 trades, 100% accuracy today. Now, on another topic, not another topic, but just on another note, I had a few questions over the weekend about why Alpha Predator had made the cut, and its win percentage was, not quite as high as some of the other ones. And today, that question pretty much answered itself in a big way. So without further ado, let's just take a look at some of these trades that were generated today by the Alpha Predator. Hey, Steve, is that you clanking around on your keyboard, or is that Scott?
Yeah, sorry about that. That's me. I'm answering your question. I'll go on mute. Usually I'm on mute when I do that. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Okay. So here we go. All these trades were spit out by Alpha Predator today, and of course, on the risk-off side, which is what this is looking at. Winner, winner, chicken dinner on just every trade today. Now, looking at the risk on, what we're going to be doing is comparing risk off versus risk on today. And just to help clarify, those of you who have been attending, this might resonate a little bit, but for those of you who might be brand new and seeing these columns for the first time, risk off is Holly playing strictly by the rules, and there are several different aspects or exit reasons that Holly can use to exit a trade. We have a stop loss, a profit target, and we also have a timed hold. If we look at the strategy panel here, we can see each and every strategy and the hold time that it was designed around. 60 minutes, 45, biggest hold time was 120 minutes. We make these intraday hold times so that we have something to grade Holly by. Now, if we look at the exit reason, in the past couple of months, we've also added additional parameters here. We have profit save and we have reduce risk, which is basically our version of a trailing stop, where we're folding how long the trade has been open into the equation. But for all practicality, we can look at that as a trailing stop type mechanism. So we always like to talk about trade arounds. And so when we talk about trade arounds with Holly, it was something like this. So ETSY triggered about 9 minutes into the open. And of course, what I have up here is a 5-minute intraday chart. And we can see when I double-click on Etsy from the All Trades blotter, the blue arrow is always going to show us the bar in which Holly issued the trade. If we look to the right, this is also going to correspond with the entry price. So 1083, 1084, 1083 right there. And we can see here that with risk off, Holly only made 10 cents due to the profit save functionality kicking in. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, if we look at the price action here on Etsy, it was an up move, but we had lots of little wick action type here, up and down on the way up. So anytime we see this type of action, Holly's going to kick that profit or that profit save functionality into gear and lock in her profits versus risking staying in something volatile of that nature and having those profits dissipate. So what we have to realize here is that every trade, whether it's from Alpha Predator or one of these other strategies, is statistically weighted to do what we think it's going to do. Now, sometimes the timing is just a little bit off, but we always say this. If you followed Holly into a trade, let's say we're in it right here, things are going our way and maybe a little, wicky on the way up, but if we got into the trade here, we can see that the smart stop that the system generated, 31 cents. So it's kind of up to each and every trader to say, okay, I'm in the trade, I feel comfortable. I'm going to risk my stop loss of 31 cents. Of course, we can see that never would have occurred. So really, there's no reason to get out of the trade. It's very similar to when Holly approaches her exit time, and we've talked about this many times in the past. You don't have to get out. You can exercise your own risk parameters and stay in the trade to try to capture more than what Holly is showing on her P&L blotter. In essence, this is going risk on a trade-by-trade basis. Steve, did you want to jump in here? I heard you.
Yeah, I took a breath to say on the Etsy chart, just to remind people, the very first thing you should be looking at when these trades come out is what does the daily chart look like? Where is there room to go? Etsy had some room to go. So again, when you're trying to decide, oh, gee, do I get in? Do I get out? Do I sell half? Do I stay in? Do I not stay in? What did Holly do? What's the market doing? Well, what's the daily chart look like? It's breaking out with some clear sailing above. That really should come into your consideration for how you want to manage the trade. It's probably more like a risk-on type trade, basically looking at the daily chart. If it had broken way lower down there at 9 o'clock and had all those candles to the left of it, tons of resistance and tons of noise, well, then maybe you take your your pittance and you jump in and you jump out and you go risk off. But the way the way Jamie was saying, and is what resonated with me, every trade really is individual of itself on a risk on, risk off, depending upon what the market's doing and what you're thinking. But in this particular case, I just wanted to really jump in and emphatically say you've got to look at the daily chart to see what's going on here. And there was a breakout from a big, long congestion level in that Etsy. So it did make sense that there was some more afternoon cookies to be had in that particular trade, for lack of a better word.
Yes, Steve, and the reason you said cookies just then is because Steve and I were just talking about the market conditions, which presented themselves today, and look at where we've come from and the size of the bars on the daily bars to where we are. So when we're up in this very tight little range, then we can have sweeps to the upside. And we can have the sweeps to the downside, to where this entire range is covered here, boom, and then all the way back down, which is not characteristic of what we've seen leading up to this point. I think everybody can agree there. But getting back to the cookies comment, today and on these small range days when we're in this little consolidation phase, bottom line right now, finished the day only up 7 cents. But we were pretty close to about $1.50 at one point in time today. Now, the cookies were being passed, but if you didn't take the cookies, there was no other chance to get cookies today. So some of you may have been in positions, might have been 1, 2, 3, or maybe you were in 10 positions of a couple hundred shares trying to spread the risk out. And you saw your P&L go up, and you're like, man, if I get a little bit more, I'm going to cash out. But guess what? That was the top, and if you didn't take that money and set that pullback, then, what you had in open P&L probably went back to flat or, decreased significantly, and there was just never any other opportunity, within the day to get that back. Maybe a couple of things, but from a large standpoint, not a lot. This is also reiterated by my Twitter feed. A lot of astute traders out there, hey, I'm trying to sit on my hands today simply because I don't want to trade out of boredom. So that was, that was being thrown around a lot today in the Twitter sphere and on stock twits and whatever. And what we saw with Holly today only re-emphasized that. Up, if you didn't take them, went back to flat. Okay, however, even though the cookies weren't in excess today, we still had quite a handful of cookies in different varieties, might I add. I mean, we had the pinwheels, we had the double stripe fudge. There was a lot of variety to choose from today. You just had to be proactive and take them. And as Steve says, what we do is we look to the daily, whether it's a Holly trade or a trade that we pull from our alert window or a top list. That's what we always do to see how much room there was today. I was going through my favorite tickers today, and I'm just looking at everything that looks really good on the intraday, and then I look over the daily, and I'm like, not a whole lot there, right? So
I was just going to say, it's like crossing a street. Look left and then look right. If you look right first and then step into the street, you might get run over. If you're not looking left to see from where the price action has come, where we've been, that really is your first step. You're doing it backwards. So just want to reiterate that.
Right. So let's talk more about the Alpha P, which started life as a top list, and then we were all like, man, we've got to convert this into a strategy because there's a lot of alpha hiding in there.
Why don't you explain? Yeah, why don't you explain the difference for some of the newer people that might not know the difference between a top list and what you're about to say?
Yeah, perfect. So just to kind of educate those of you who are new to the platform and to re-emphasize for those of you who are not new to the platform, we have top list and we have alert windows. So if I can find my toolbar here, I will point the difference out to you guys. So what I'm going to do real quick here is just take the Alpha Predator top list and pop into the configuration area. And we can see in a top list all we do is use filters. It's for when we just want to use this very powerful all or none filter set, and that's how the filters operate. No matter how many filters we plug in here, all of these guys have to be met simultaneously, all at the same time. So without going too much into the nitty-gritty here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 filters in play. However, when we're dealing with Holly and the strategies that she's optimizing and backtesting every day for the next session, we are dealing with alert windows. So if I click new on my toolbar and just spawn a new alert window, by default it spawns this one, breaking out on volume. And if we go into configure, not only do we use filters, but we also attach a trigger, or what's known as an alert, to that filter set. So the way the alert window ends up functioning is that obviously the filter set has to be met, and then one of the stocks meeting that filter criteria exhibits the alert that we have checked, and boom, that's a strategy. So what we did is, after searching and searching and searching for what might be the best catalyst or alert for that alpha predator top list, we finally arrived at one. And so that's what you see right here. Now, kind of circling back around, came in at 52.7% today and went 8 for 8 for 100%. I mean, wow. So Etsy is the only one that kind of jumps off the page as far as interacting with Holly for what we call a trade around. A lot of the times, we can find a trade to trade around within Holly that initially got stopped out. So one that kind of stands out right here was one that the Bond Shorty generated, ITGR, and that was this bar right here. So briefly in the money, and then boom, that stock reversed. So a lot of the times what we can do is we can, Holly took the trade right here. It did not work. All right, we can see the price right here, 23.19. So if we just draw a horizontal line across from 23.19, we see Holly gets stopped out right here as it turns back up. But if we've already set that mark, or once we see Holly get stopped out, we can draw some lines and see if we want to take the other side of that trade. Sometimes it's reversing, going long on a short. A lot of the times it's a long that gets stopped out, but then it bounces right off the bottom and goes back up, which is all about the timing issue, because all of the plays that Holly generates are statistically weighted. Sometimes the timing is off. Anything to add on that, Steve?
No. No, I follow you. And again, this is just a reminder that there's more than one opportunity to trade these. Sometimes Holly's a bit early or a bit late, a bit tight with her stops, but all day long the alpha potential is still there and still in the scoring of the system, which came into play to be activated today by Holly. So just because there was one trade that may not work and got tightly stopped out doesn't mean that the rest of the day is still not in play in going forward. And so that's what we call trade arounds, and just a reminder that these trades are good for the full day. There can be second chances across the board. You've just got to know how to look for them.
Right, and so, looking at the spreads between risk on and risk off, usually there's a lot of standouts just due to the nature of today. 10 cents versus $1.06, that's the one that jumps off the page. We could have picked up an extra 18 cents here, or an extra 7 cents here. The good thing is, a lot of times, what it also shows us is, okay, we took 20 cents on HRTX. Had we held that trade, it would have been over a $2 loser.
Yeah,
right?
You will never see that type of a loss in the risk off column. The risk management controls for the AI are just too tight to allow that. But that's why we have that second column, just to see if there's more alpha potential to be had on a good trade moving in the right direction. Sometimes there's no reason to get out. But when Holly takes her exit, and especially if it's a tight exit or even a loss exit, you're not going to ever see the AI take a big hit. And so that's why we like to refer to her as our canary in the coal mine, statistically unemotional, perfect trader. There is no perfect trader, of course, but when we can find something that's only trading the odds and the statistics and sitting on the hands when there is no odds, and not only that, employing and demonstrating tight risk management scenarios, yeah, you will never see a $2.32 loser on the risk off category. Holly just does not know how to do that.
And I'd also just like to point out the addition of a new column. This one right here, profit change in the last 5-minute period. So this little guy was pretty interesting today as well, basically just showing how much the P&L in that specific position has changed over the last 5 minutes. So, you know, when you're watching Holly over the next trading session or the rest of this week, every once in a while when you have time to do so, just sort by this column. It's going to show you which things are, you know, which profits are fluctuating the most in the past 5 minutes, and a lot of the time we can use this as, I guess the best description is a data stream within the data stream, just another way to sort the data in a productive manner.
And giving us kind of a countdown or a short list, if you will, to watch as to what stocks are starting to reperform on the day again and maybe ready for a second move. So it helps us catch the second chance trade arounds on Holly if she got stopped out too soon or took you know, an unusually small winner and booked it. There's tons of opportunity all day long, and the profit change in the last 5 minutes is going to highlight you, if you sort by that column, what is the most active stocks on Holly's list of trades today that may be setting up for another move.
Right, and looking once again, Steve, what just caught my eye is the exit reason. The majority of them were the profit save, which, you know, we have all of these trades going up, but taking little jerky pullbacks. That's what's going to trigger that, right? Mm-hmm. So once again, kind of eye-opening. And, you know, while we were in this very tiny range up here, and we heard a lot of people complaining about no opportunity, it was there, but it was very short-lived, right? And so if you haven't been watching this P&L graph here, it's just like any other type of chart. You know, we popped highs, we took our little pullback, we tried to go again, and then we started coming back down again. So this can be very crucial in helping, you know, everyone kind of figure that out as time goes along. Now, you know, I've been getting little bits and pieces from the developers, and this has also been a question a lot of users have been asking about. Well, how do I know what to look at? Is it risk on or risk off? Now, until we get something a little bit more solid, I think one of the best ways to go about that is on a trade-by-trade basis. If it looks good on the chart, if we look back to the left on the daily and see lots of room, and Holly's about to exit on a timed hold, and we're like, okay, let's stay in the trade and just, you know, exercise proper risk management and, you know, not doing more. But that is risk on a trade-by-trade basis. Make sense? Okay.
Makes sense to me. You can also sell half if you're not sure what to do and Holly's exiting and you're not sure whether to stay. You sell half and you make it much easier on your psyche. I'm telling you. You satisfy both demons.
Rigid is just as bad as being too loose, right? We have to remain flexible and mix it up a little bit.
I have noticed a lot more profit saves in the last couple weeks in Holly on the exits, and that's good because it's basically telling us that the system is not going to allow a green trade with profit alpha to turn around and go negative, which was what it was happening a lot in some of the earlier versions of Holly. So we're learning, the AI is learning, and it's definitely finding its way into the performance. These profit saves have been a really nice enhancement to basically demonstrate how not to let good trades go negative.
Right. So now let's go ahead and move on into, we've got the Alpha Predator top list, which we're going to showcase some of the trades from it today as well. But just to clarify, Holly takes this and puts her own additional filters and re-optimizes it. So the thing you see show up here is not exactly the thing you see down here. Now this is more for manual trading. So while this one just basically killed it today, went 8 for 8, what about some of the trades that didn't show up in this one that were present in this one today? So let me just pull my little sheet back over here. And these are all of the stocks that the Alpha Predator top list kicked out. And I've got them kind of grouped here by These were the first 5 minutes. These were the ones that came out in the second 5 minute period, or this one, which actually it was an ETF. Some people might not like ETFs. I like anything that moves, actually. If I've got a good read on it and it's an ETF, sure, why not enjoy that ride? But let's take a look at these guys first. So first on the list we had, this might look familiar to everyone. Now, TOPS came out in the first 5 minute bar here. Of course, we see what the stock did. And the float on this one is, I believe, under 1 million, right? So we're looking at a float of 640,000 shares in tops. So, does it take a genius to figure out that when you've got a float of under 1 million shares, it's doesn't take very much volume at all.
Very slippery.
To make things go up, or in some cases, go down. So that was one of the first ones out of the chute today. Still in the same 5 minute period, we had Etsy, of course, which was produced by the strategy within Holly today. So moving right along, ETX, not TX. Not another bad little stock. Obviously it's under $1, but in the first 5 minutes, we had a high of 63 cents. 10% is 6 cents. So just shy of that, whether you got out here or held it for the rest of the day, not a bad percentage return on a very small stock. A couple other ones in here to mention as well. Of course, once again, an ETF, drip, but, if it drips up all day, nothing wrong with that at all. And lastly here, BIIB, first 5 minutes, nice little run to the top, plenty of time to figure out if you want to stay in or get out. But keeping in mind, everybody, the nature of today, in the Twittersphere, in the StockTwits world, people that are astute traders, and of course I was of the same mindset today. I'm like, wow, all the action came. If you didn't take it, there wasn't a whole lot of action for the remainder of the day. But even on a slow day such as this, just from Alpha Predator in its native form of a top list, and in the Holly version, lots and lots of opportunity just from that one strategy today. And
I'll tell you what. Something we didn't touch on that I think we meant to touch on was the Alpha Predator. And again, people ask me, Steve, how do you like to use Holly? Well, there's no one way to do it, but there are many different cues you can look at. Trade bias, is she going only short or only long, is one way. But strategy bias today. Let's take a look at this, because at 1 hour after the open, we had a was 4 for 4. And it took another hour for it to go the full 8 for 8. So when you look up and you see a new trade fire, if you're paying attention and watching, what's going on here today? Oh, quarterback didn't do that well. But this Alpha Predator, boy, it's 4 for 4 here at 1 hour after. Oh, there comes another Alpha Predator trade. Well, those are the ones you might want to give a little bit more weight to, because the AI obviously is seeing something, that strategy is seeing something, that strategy is working. When you've got something batting 100% after 3, 4, 5, 6 trades, my advice is to continue to pay attention to that strategy, and if another one comes out, maybe even give it a bit more weighting than you may have in the past, just because certain strategies have their day and certain strategies don't. And sometimes early on in the first hour of the day, you can kind of get a feel for which strategies seem to be hooked up and working better than the others. And today, Alpha Predator was giving you that example 1 hour into the day with going 4 for 4, and then continued to spit out 4 more trades, which were also 4 for 4 on top of that. So a great day, and it was kind of an early indication giving to you, if you were paying attention, as to what strategies were performing better than the others.
Yeah, nice observation there, Steve. So the last little symbol to take a look at here is, once again, another ETF, but, not that difficult of a trade to stay in. And this one was issued by the Alpha Predator top list in the second 5 minute period, right about here. So once again, not a bad updraft to be caught in as a long trader today. So just wanted to point that out, that you know, not a whole lot of opportunity out there. We didn't follow through with the market, therefore everything backed off from the top. But risk off chart right here kind of tells the story. Potential alpha of about $1.30 at the top, and plenty of time to make your decision. Before that double top was put in, or even after it, plenty of time to make your decision to take profits there.
And again, if you're not sure, you can always sell half. You can't go broke selling half.
Absolutely.
The winners, that is.
All right, so I think Steve has developed a new strategy. Is that right, Steve?
I do. I did. I have, and I'm continuing to deal with it and tweak it. I mentioned it and kind of teased it last week on my Wednesday webinar, and it's still doing really well. So for those of you that didn't get a look at it, I'll go ahead and take over here again. Go ahead and look at my screen once more. And this is called the washout bounce. So if you guys haven't heard of this one, it's basically looking for stocks. Let's just go ahead and click the one and only alert today, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. Looking for stocks that have fallen at least three days, that are down pretty good. I'm looking for stocks that are putting in a range that is a minimum of 100% of their normal average range. Trade Ideas can identify every single stock and compute what their average volatility or their average range would be on a percent basis. So what I did is, let's take a look at the configures here just real quick. Again, we are using this as an alert because it can be back tested, so we need an A window. The A window gives us the event, or the alert as Jamie called it, but in this case the event gives us a timestamp and a price stamp, and that allows us to do grab those data points and start using them for back testing. But as far as the configuration goes, it's really not much. It's got to be negative on the day, so it's changed from the close, nothing positive. But these are stocks that put in a long tail, hopefully, and are closing near the top. Here is today's range, minimum 100%. So I took what the range is of 100% and made that the minimum, because it can go higher than 100, but I want this to be a long range, not a short bar, a long bar. And then I don't want this stock alert event to be triggering me until it has recovered and is back up near 95% of the position in range. In other words, 5 cents away from making a new daily high. So these are the kind of hammers, bottoming tails, whatever you want to call them, that I'm looking for on the daily chart. Now here's a bit of good news. I know a lot of people don't necessarily want to day trade, and a lot of people are always asking me, well, what's the best swing trading scan you have? And what we always say is, all trades start off as a day trade, but they can slowly evolve into a swing trade. And what I'm trying to do here is create an alert that I can look at in the last 15, 20 minutes of the day. Because during the day, let's face it, this thing could come back down and go back and close at lows, and then you've jumped the gun. But the idea for this particular trade is, if we get a candle that closes like this and shows that this is the day it put in and it's closing near highs and it's got a nice bottoming tail after a big pullback, chances are, and we'll go ahead and back test this to see if my theory is correct, that's something that you can build on for a few days. Maybe it's a slow grind back up, but this seems to be the worst of it. So I'm trying to identify a scanner that shows me the stock that says this was the worst of it for the few days. So hopefully the coast is clear for a few days of building on these types of washouts. So I showed you how it's configured. There's no there's no custom filters in there. I'll go ahead and share it now, just because I have a feeling some of you guys are probably going to ask for it. So let's copy that to my clipboard. And for you don't know, we have a chat window on the GoToMeeting toolbar there, the floating toolbar. There's a plus sign next to the chat, and you click the chat plus sign, and that window opens up. And I'm dropping in that cloud configuration right now. So if you want to accept that cloud and load from the cloud, you will also have my most current copy of Washout Bounce. And again, there's a lot of different ways these can go, but I'm looking for them at the end of the day, and that's the operative word, at the end of the day. I'll let them come out throughout the day, but I want to see what we got at the end of the day and see if any of these are worth maybe taking home some overnight and establishing a new long swing position, basically at the close. But first, making sure that we're close to the top here on the close. We didn't fall back down and close near lows. That's not going to do anybody any good. So I want to wait until the end of the day until I see how these look. So again, I'm pretty. It's hard to find something that back tests well over the course of one day, but I think I found one here. So let's go ahead and right-click back test strategy. And I have already optimized it, just basically knowing that if I want to run this all day long, the best types of alerts that go on to better, productivity and better win percentage seem to start later in the day. So I don't really concern myself with the first 2 hours of the day. So 8:30 is 11:30 East Coast. That's going to be the beginning of my scan. And then I'll take these all the way into the close for the most part, because the close is where I'm going to be evaluating these to see if I want to take any of these home. Exit. Well, we've talked about how to exit in 30 minutes. We've talked about how to exit at the end of the day. But what we're doing here is we're doing exit today plus 4 days at the market open in 4 days. So that's how long this one is set to hold. I've loosened up the risk management just a little, but it's still a 3-to-1 ratio. Basically letting it wiggle a little bit, 2% before a stop loss, and then, I'm sorry, these are in dollars, $2 stop loss and then a $6 upside price target. That's the way it seems to work best on that. We'll go ahead and we'll just back test maybe 32 trading days. And let's just simulate a buy. And so what it's doing is it's taking every one of these alerts, it's only averaging a few a day, and saying what happens if we buy it and hold it for 4 days and sell at the open. Well, we got a good chunk of trades, 235, so there's definitely a lot of trades, but they're all performing pretty well, 74.5%. That's something we barely even see on Holly half the time. 4.55 profit factor is a great profit factor. Remember, 1.0 profit factor is just like flipping a coin, and every heads is overcome by a tails, and you never really get anywhere. So we're moving forward on the profit factor. We need 2.1 at least for a good Holly score, and we're doing that and then some here. So, for those that want it, I'm still, it's a relatively new alert. I haven't tweaked it very much. I don't have any custom filters in it, but I really like what it's spitting out, and I like to take a look at it at the end of the day and see if some of these are worth taking home. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you have any questions on that particular alert, you can email me, steve@trade-ideas.com. But I did drop in the cloud link for those that are curious to monitor something like this. And again, it's not something to be jumped in as it comes out. It's something to be studied at the end of the day and see if there's 3 or 4 of these on there. And if there's one that looks really nice, and by nice, I mean a long tail, and by nice, I mean closing at the top end of its range and maybe even seeing a little bit of green candle in there. Those are the ones that I have confidence in that can build on for 3 or 4 days and just kind of turn your back and hopefully let them work for you. But if they don't, then they don't. That's trading. You just got to manage your risk. But it seems to me like this is a decent entry opportunity for a 3 or 4 day trade. All right, Jamie, I'll pass it back to you. And again, for those that want it, it's in the chat window on the cloud link.
Good stuff, Steve. Good stuff. I like that a lot. All right, just checking the time here. I don't really know if we have time to get into the trend change.
If we had a bunch of really, really good hot ones too, we might want to make time, but I don't know if that's the case today, is it?
Come back on that?
Are there a lot of good trend change lubricant setups that are out there, or were they kind of hard to find?
Well, the list is pretty packed. I tell you what, how about for 5 minutes, let's just kind of,
sure,
play the hot potato game here.
Yeah, let's see what we can find.
Yeah, all right. So as everybody can see here, I've got the trend change lubricant top list. This is what we use to find those candidates that might fit the pattern. And typically what we're going to do is we're going to sort by short float.
Yep.
And we'll explain that in just a second if anybody needs explaining. The short float, what that does to a trade that looks good. And I don't know, see this AGIO, first one I pulled up, it already popped through this level here today and pulled back. So that one doesn't look too bad, and it's got a 57.3% short float.
Yeah, I think when it has that high of a short float, it's probably worth continuing to not lose track of it. So I agree with you. We should mark that one up at today's highs.
Yeah, we'll use today's high, which would be 46.36. So we'll say 46.37. There we go. If it rises, we're going to go long, and then as always, I'm going to notate this trade so that when it triggers in the middle of the trading day, I don't go, what is this?
Why? What's this?
I can just read my notes and remain calm. Okay, so that's Agio.
Zillow Group really shouldn't be on that chart. That's a stock split that didn't adjust accordingly. So
Yeah.
Trade Ideas actually sees that as a trend change. That's an error. We got to disregard that one.
Okay.
And
So
that's a pretty long green stick today.
a little too
That
much
one.
energy expended getting up there.
Mm-hmm. Well,
IMMU.
that one's not as bad. It sounds like it's a biotech pharmaceutical. I really like the way it emerged from that 6 or 7 day little flag there, that narrow rangingly trade. There still could be some juice on that one. I don't think it would be wise to disavow it just because had a green candle today and because it's a biotech. It still could have some run at 29, round up 30% short the float. So I'd mark that one up at today's highs.
You want to go today's high, or should we use this little wick back here? Or I think
I'd
that
use today's highs. I'd use follow through from today.
yeah, 285. So we'll say 285 on that one. Rise is long, and once again, TCL daily. All right, perfecto. Moving right along here.
It's a lot of still
Yeah. And,
long range. Had a pretty good green bar today. You could make a case for that hiccup back in the middle there by the D in the chart, and just set it and forget it and see if it does something at some point. It's not really that compelling, but if it does get above that bar after that long sideways range, that could be interesting.
yeah, that'd be what, 1312-ish at the top of that bar, and then we have not a void, but a fun slide over here.
Yeah, back
All
up to
right. You want to throw that one in at 1312 and just
I
watch
think
it?
so, and just give yourself a note, that so what's the current market doing?
Right, long. Very good. Next is Opco Health.
Ooh, I kind of like that. It's been going a lot of sideways action. If it can get above that sideways action, it'll probably pop back up to that level under $11 from last month. I think you just, locate the high there of that little narrow range and then use that as the trigger.
1011, I believe. Let's see here. Yeah, 1011 it is.
Okay. And we're starting to get bottom barrel here on the short float. Real quick, like Jamie said, what's the significance of the short float? Well, stocks only have a certain amount of stock certificates in circulation. The one he's highlighting right there has 107 million shares in the float. However, 21.6% of those 107 million are being held by short sellers, which have to be reported through the brokers. The brokers have to report back to the exchanges, so all the shares and certificates are accounted for, so people are not shorting stock certificates that don't exist. So once that's a known factor, you have a contingency of that float, in this case about 20 million shares that are hoping the price goes lower. If the price does not go lower and continues to go higher, those short sellers are going to be losing money and starting to panic. And the only way to get out of that position is to buy to cover. And buying to cover competes with buying to go long. So everybody's buying at once, and that's why we call it a short squeeze frenzy. But you really need something above 20, 25% in the short float category to kind of create those environments. Many stocks have 5, 10, 12% short the float and don't really add much significance. But when you get above 20 and 25%, that's float short squeeze can start to come to fruition. And I'll just use the example I've always used. If you put X US Steel, we'll make this our last example of the evening before we turn it over to Scott. But back in March of this year, there was a line in the sand that was a technical line that exactly right there that we use all day long. We try to identify these pivot points. And the smart short sellers realized at 56% short the float. That's right, U.S. Steel, a big blue chip stock, actually had 56% of the people short. I don't know what got into them, but as you can see, they were wrong. And initially, they were really wrong because the price exploded through that level as a short squeeze. There's no other way to put it. There's no other tag to put on that. That's exactly what happened to that X. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking for on these high short float percentage stocks using these trend changes. And X is still, to this day, a great, perfect example of how you can change the trend at one pivot level with just one big short squeeze to start the tinderbox.
Yep. You want a fire, or would you like fire with some gasoline poured on top? Right.
I like fire with some gasoline poured on top because it's more coming quicker. We don't
For
always have
sure. So I
patience. We don't
believe.
always have the patience we require in this business. So when they come fast and furious in our direction, we like it.
Okay, so we queued up 4 limit alerts to hand out to everybody. So I'm going to pop these, pop the cloud link for these into the chat area real quick here. And there we go. All right. Steve, anything to add before we let Scott come in here and tell everybody thank you for attending?
No, just other than I was really surprised by a lack of follow through today to the upside. So I made a mental note of that in the spiders. I might be ratcheting down my bias just a little bit, but that was curious. I did find that extremely curious today. Looked
Oh
like
yeah,
it was.
you're
It
not
looked
the
like
only
it
one
was clear
here.
sailing. It looked like it was clear sailing, but it wasn't. So duly noted.
And it will be a pretty big deal when this thing breaks out. Now, how far will we go? Unknown at this point since it's all-time highs. But it'll be an interesting ride. So we all want to be in the chair when that does happen. Whether it happens tomorrow or next week or not until the fall, no way to know. So if we do have more of this type of action, just kind of reflect on what we talked about today. Not every day is going to be the same, but they are going to be pretty similar depending on if we go down, start at the top and go to the bottom and back up again. There's a lot of different factors in there. But one thing is for sure, it should certainly be interesting.
Yes, sir.
All right, Scott, if you are there, I think we're ready for you.
Yeah, thanks. Good presentation today. Yeah, so something that we like to do to thank everyone for their attendance and also to welcome those of you who want to go ahead and come on board is give you a product code to save some money. And also to start out with, we're a software as a service company, so everything is subscription based. You can either get the standard or the premium. The premium comes with Holly the AI, the price limit alerts, red bar ignore, green bar ignore, our backtesting module, the odds maker, and more. Both do include a full hour of one-on-one training. So as soon as you sign up for either standard or premium, whether monthly or annual, go to the About Us section, find the support, or click on support at the top navigation, and then go to training, or you can click on training from the footer nav and just go ahead and select your preferred time and date for your free hour of one-on-one orientation training. Also, there's a handout in your GoToWebinar panel. Go to the handouts panel on your GoToWebinar interface and click on the PDF, and that contains this slide along with their contact information slide. So you can use that code PROFESSOR anytime this week to save 15% off your first month or your first year of the premium, or 10% off your first month of the first year of standard service. So that's a great way to get on board and save, or you can upgrade from the monthly premium or monthly standard to your premium annual. It's a fantastic way to save money and get access to Holly and the AI. If you're a standard subscriber on the yearly and you want to upgrade, just contact info@trade-ideas.com. We do have a path for upgrade, and they'll go ahead and help you out with that. Thanks for attending. There will be a recording of this available later on tonight or tomorrow. You'll get an email from GoToWebinar letting you know where to find that on our which playlist to find that on in our YouTube channel. Follow Dan at Trade Ideas One. Follow Steve Gomez, Today Trader, on Twitter. Jamie is QuantPod on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook, Trade Ideas Pro at facebook.com. We post some original content there sometimes. It's nice to have that in your feed so you get notified about those things. Jamie's reachable at jhodge at Trade Ideas. You can find Steve at trade-ideas.com. The best place to send general inquiries for help is info@trade-ideas.com. And of course, we have a phone number that's staffed during normal operating hours West Coast time, and that's a great way to get help with your billing if you need quick help with your billing or account status. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Andy. We'll see a bunch of you at the Q&A demo webinar on Wednesday. That's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We also have a Trade of the Week webinar if you're on that list, and that's going to be this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. If you're not on the Trade of the Week list, just hit us up on one of the instant message things and ask for a link to get onto that. You do have to be on that list to get the invites, though. We always get some requests day of, and the best way to do it is to be on the Trade of the Week newsletter list, and then you get a trade idea in your inbox every Monday morning, straight from Holly. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Talk to y'all later.
Bye bye.